This is how much I managed to learn of OpenGL in the past 1 month using my own programming language. This is my final project for this challenge. It's the breakout game where you just move the paddle and try to destroy all the blocks. This game was made from scratch using my own programming language, and you can see it in this file. All of this is plain English, and using plain English, I managed to create a game, and I managed to accomplish that by creating a compiler that translates this plain English into actual C++ and OpenGL code. This is all of the code that gets translated, and it's an actual game from scratch because the only thing I'm using is glfw for window management and OpenGL for communicating with the GPU and to render on the screen, and GLM for all the math functions, and STB image for loading images. I think this is from 1 month of learning because in my Obsidian notes that I started writing, the notes were created on 13th of January and today is 20th of February, so I assume 1 month has passed. I streamed most of it, and from the first stream this is what I managed to accomplish, and it's very little because straight away from learning the basics from this resource, I just picked the idea of the breakout game because they cover in the tutorial how to make the breakout game, but I decided first to try to make it without looking at the tutorial, just relying on the basics from the getting started section, and this is what I managed to accomplish, just rendering to the screen a bunch of squares. Then the next stream I managed to have the ball moving and a moving paddle, but there was no collision. After that I experimented by making the snake game, then I tried making the player from Terraria, then I tried to render 500,000 blocks on the screen without much luck, and finally I tried to make the game this time properly after reading a bit on the actual guide and correcting most of my mistakes. So with my programming language, I've made it so you can code in plain English. It works quite simple. To the right, you create all kinds of rules, and to the left, in the actual file, you can use those rules to code with them. It's like using dynamic comments, and here, for example, I can include OpenGL. When I save, it automatically compiles, and here I see that I have this line. What this basically does is it sees that I have this line, it searches in the rules, and it says include OpenGL, and it just copy pastes this rule, this line, in the actual CPP. This is the simplest version, and here we have a more complicated rule, which is like a dynamic comment where you have arguments. And here I can type print to console and then my message, hello world, and I can see in the CPP I have my hello world, but I need to have my main function. That's why there's an error, but we are just demonstrating here. I made my programming language about a year ago and it became quite viral. The most common comments were that there is COBOL, where you can program in English as well. And another comment mentioned that people don't have an issue with the syntax, but instead they have an issue with how to solve a problem. All of the comments said that the project is interesting, but they don't see a value in using it. My initial idea for the project was that there are so many programming languages, and here I've shown an example how in each language you're saying the same thing, but in a different way. So why can't we learn it in one way and take advantage of every programming language? Because here we're declaring a variable and we have to type it in this way. In another language we type it in another way. But in the end, all we're doing is declaring a variable. And I thought that it would be cool when you open the source code for a big project, for example, OBS Studio for recording videos. And here is one random file from the source code. And here, most people will have no idea what's happening. And I thought to myself, it would be cool if this was just programming in plain English. I thought to myself that it would be easy to understand. I used it to learn OpenGL and make a game from scratch because I wanted to see what I need to change so that it can be actually useful to people and not be just an interesting project. And the challenge was a huge success because I managed to see all the criticism firsthand and I came up with possible solutions to all of the problems that people have seen. My main issue coding in plain English was that I had to use it for everything, even for the simple things. When I had to use it for something new and complex to me, like drawing on the screen, creating a VBO, binding a VBO, etc., I loved using English as a programming language. But for easy to me things like creating variables, creating a class, including libraries, it was really annoying to have to create a rule for each one of them, for every single simple thing. And another issue with that is that at one point there are so many rules that even with the auto-completion that I've created, it's difficult to find the exact rule that I need. There are too many rules. And the other issue that I noticed, which was mentioned in the comments, was that people don't have problem with the syntax, but with problem solving. When I attempted to make the player collision and the player jumping, I've already learned the syntax. The issue was that I couldn't come up with a solution to the problem of solving the collision between the player and the platform, and having all these rules here didn't help me with finding a solution. But it's not only negatives, there are also many positives. One big positive is that I've tried to learn OpenGL before, and every time I've tried, I've always given up. But this time, coding in plain English, not only I managed to go through and learn a lot from the tutorial, but I even did all the extra exercises. So the main benefit I've seen coding in plain English is that it's a lot less scary with learning something new. Also, what it helps me is that I'm not learning the syntax, I'm focusing only on learning OpenGL, like the theory behind it. Because when you start this guide here, you're not only learning OpenGL, but you're also have to fight with the complex syntax and all the function names, etc., and how to use them. Whereas when I used English as a programming language, the only thing I focused on is the theory itself. So I can confidently say that the main benefit to my project is how much faster it is to learn with it. I learned a lot faster with it, and I actually learned with it. And I believe the main purpose for that was having to write all of these rules and interacting with only the rules, ignoring the complicated syntax. So what is my solution moving forward with the project? What I came up is this. You remember before how there is only one file with rules? Here I separated them in different files where I've categorized the rules. This way, here you can see there are a few rules for each category. And the most exciting change is to use English as a programming language only in a playground, something like a sandbox. I imagine its use for next time to continue to code regularly, like this with C++, OpenGL, etc. And when I read a tutorial, to write down all of these rules and categorize them only for the complex things that I don't understand, and ignore the simple things like creating a variable, etc. And when I want to create something complicated like player collision, or I want to solve a complex exercise, to open a blank playground and use English Plus just for the particular small use case. And then just copy and paste the resulting small code and use it in my actual project. Because another thing that I noticed after I switched from coding in plain English to using C++ and OpenGL, I had no idea of the actual syntax. I knew what I had to do, like I knew I had to create a VBO or VAO, but I didn't know the syntax on how to do it. So it took me a little bit of time to actually get comfortable with the syntax. And in this new way of coding, I'll be using the syntax from the very start. I'm really proud with the project because I made an actual compiler for the programming language where I have a lexer, parser, I evaluate the results, I have actual tokens. Doing the project the proper way was easy, fast and easy to solve problems that occurred, and it was really easy to add new features that I come up with time. I will open source the code in a few weeks, but if you want instant access right now, you can find the project in my Patreon.